back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, April 24th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about Jerry Jones, some of his recent comments regarding the Cowboys offseason, as well as contract negotiations with some of their star players in Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, and CeeDee Lamb. So that I know that's something we've been talking about in recent weeks, but we're going to continue that discussion in just a little bit. Then another topic that has been discussed a lot on my show as well as other shows is the Brandon Aiyuk trade rumors. So there's some things that I wanted to touch upon that I saw with that, as well as John Lynch and his comments on drafting Trey Lance and how that situation unfolded and how ultimately Brock Purdy became the starter. So we'll get into that as well. Then we'll talk about the Cardinals and them being open to trading the number 4 overall pick, but it might not necessarily happen. Well, it's going to happen when they're on the clock. It's not going to happen anytime before that, since we only got today and the draft is tomorrow night. So we'll also talk about that as well. And then we'll talk about the Steelers. We'll talk about General Manager Omar Khan and him talking about the possibility of the Steelers maybe taking a quarterback in this draft. So we'll get into that to end off the show. So with that being said now, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about Jerry Jones, which has been a popular topic recently. And I know a lot of people love the Cowboys, so we're gonna do that. So with Jerry Jones now, he talked about a couple things. I know the all-in statement that he said about this Cowboys season has really gained traction, and many people have been outraged. Really, Cowboys fans have been outraged because the Cowboys really didn't do anything other than signed Eric Kendricks, a linebacker, and they brought back their long snapper. And when you have a statement like that and you say you're all in and that's what you end up doing, yeah, you're going to get complaints. But we still have the draft. So I wanted to get into some of the quotes from Jerry Jones, a couple of articles I had from Bleacher Report. So this is what Jerry Jones had to say. And he said, this is on Tuesday, "We're very proud of this roster. We feel very, very good about the promise of this roster this season. We feel great about what we've been in free agency. We're all in." Then some other quotes as well. Or I guess that might be actually, no. Is that the only quote from this article? I thought there was another one in here. Yeah, well, that's what he basically said about the roster. And I know I have another article here that talks about the contract negotiation, so we'll get into that as well. So this is what he said about the contract negotiations now with Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons. He said, "If you got trouble with when the timing is around here, it's because I'm not ready to go. You may be working on contracts and not moving anything but your eyebrows. Who in the world would think that we're not working on it? I work on it. It pops up at 2 in the morning sometimes when you're actually questioning is why don't you have something done and negotiated and put in the drawer? Well, we'd like to see more leaves fall. We'd like to see some more action. It's called option quarterback. I've spent my life playing option quarterback. I want to see more cards played. Kind of interesting way to word talk. Well, now he's talking about Dak, but this is what he also said. We want Dak Prescott, and that's that. So they're going to try to work out a deal. I know I talked earlier about Dak being open to playing with another team next year, and I think that definitely is a strong possibility. But he also did say he doesn't necessarily want to be the highest paid quarterback. So I think that could also help the Cowboys out. They can negotiate on a deal that works best for both sides, and he sticks around. But there is a chance that he could end up going elsewhere. But yeah, so basically Jerry Jones, he doubled down on the all-in mentality that the Cowboys are all in, even though they really haven't done that much. But where it's going to come is through the draft. And we'll see what kind of moves that they end up making. But I'm not really... I mean, the Cowboys, I think for me, they're still going to be a good team next year. It's just they didn't really get better. Where did they get better? They kind of stayed the same. They changed defensive coordinators because Dan Quinn left. You lost Tony Pollard. You lost some guys that went to Washington, followed Dan Quinn. Where did they get better? And on top of that, you got some big decisions to make. Because CeeDee Lamb might put some pressure on you because he could hold out. And you don't want that to carry into the regular season. Again, that is ways away. I mean, they can get a new deal done. But you don't want CeeDee Lamb holding out. And then you got Dak Prescott to worry about. And Micah Parsons eventually as well. So... But this is what Jerry Jones does, and I've gotten comments from Cowboys fans on some of my videos. I actually wanted to I'll pull one of them up because this was about the whole all-in thing, so I want to see if I can find it. But because I talked about the all-in stuff, and someone basically said it's just to make headlines, but I want to see if I can find it. I forget which YouTube account it was under, but it basically was just Jerry Jones likes to make headlines. That's really what it was. Let's see. Oh wait, here we go. Yeah, here's the strategy. This is from 5 days ago. This is from Mike Patelli 146. He said, "Yes, here's the strategy," because the title of the show from this was from last week. Dallas Cowboys quiet offseason strategy revealed. That was the title of the stream. And he said, yes, here's the strategy. Jerry Jones doesn't care about winning Super Bowls. He cares about Dallas being talked about. He believes that keeps his highest worth franchise significant. Now, again, I don't know if he's a Cowboys fan, but can't necessarily disagree with him because Jerry Jones does like to talk. And that's really all the Cowboys have been about in recent years, is just a lot of talking. They talk the talk, but they don't really walk the walk because you get to the playoffs and you're either one and done, or you get to the second round and you lose. So, and I mean, but the other thing too is, what do you want them to say? Oh yeah, we stink. We didn't do anything. Don't watch us. Don't come to our games. Honestly, it's kind of the same thing with the Yankees, with their ownership. Like, what do you want them to say? That they're a bad product? I mean, the Cowboys haven't won anything. That doesn't mean that they've been a bad team. Yeah, they've had some rough years. I know 2020 was rough, but a lot of that had to do with Dak getting hurt. 2019 wasn't good either. They missed the playoffs. I mean, I think Dak had a good year, but they didn't make the playoffs. And they're a team that, for the most part, consistently makes the playoffs every year. But they don't do anything. So that's why this draft, they really got to nail this draft, because if they don't, the fan base is going to be really upset. And I've said this, the Cowboys do a nice job at drafting. So that means that, they probably will draft some good players here, with the draft being upon us. But it's got to, I mean, you can't do what the fan base wants. So if they go different routes with certain picks and the fan base has other ideas and they're upset, you're not going to do what the fans want. But I'm just saying they're going to draft some impact players in this draft, I feel like. And if not, well, that's going to be a problem. So, but like I was saying, fan base can want certain guys, the team's going to want to draft certain guys, so that's we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, the draft is upon us, and really looking forward to it. Tomorrow night. First round is tomorrow. Friday, you got rounds 2 and 3, and then 4 through 7 Saturday. So it should be fun. Should be fun. And there's going to be some big things happening. Like I said, I think yesterday, you're definitely going to see trades. You're definitely going to see that the first night. There's going to be teams moving up, moving down. It's going to happen. That's the way it looks. And we'll talk about one of those teams that could be moving down later in the show with the Cardinals. So, but with the Cowboys, back to the original point, it definitely for the fan base has to be annoying when you have someone in the organization saying something when it's going to be interpreted differently. When you say you're going to go all in, well, that should mean that you're going to bring in more than just a linebacker, who actually was originally going to sign with a different team. Because I think Eric Kendricks was going to sign with, what was it, the 49ers? And then he ended up changing his mind and signing with the Cowboys. Now, Mike Zimmer is there, and Mike Zimmer was the coach of the Vikings when Eric Kendricks was there, so that makes sense. But Eric Kendricks almost went to another team. But now he's with the Cowboys. And like I said, they re-signed their long snapper, but you lost guys to Washington, and you had to cut some guys too. Guys had to retire. Lane Vander Esch had to retire. They cut Michael Gallup. Now, Michael Gallup was kind of just the third wide receiver. So, I mean, Cowboys could end up maybe drafting a receiver late. That's possible. Running back, you figure they could address that. They did bring in Royce Freeman. That was actually another move that they made. They did bring in Royce Freeman to add to the backfield. So you figure maybe they draft one. Now, it's not really that loaded of a running back class from at least what I heard. Receiver class, it's loaded. But we'll see. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. The draft's gonna be interesting with the Cowboys, and we'll see how they're able to figure out these contract stuff with their star players, and if they're gonna be able to keep all three of them. Now, Jerry Jones did say, like I said before, with this quote, that they want Dak Prescott, but maybe they don't want him as much as maybe people think. And Dak ends up going elsewhere, and Cowboys are going to have to figure out something else at quarterback. Now, we're going to talk about Trey Lance later in the show, but like I've been saying, he's on the roster. So if Dak ends up leaving, maybe Trey Lance gets another shot. But again, this is down the line. So, I mean, they could end up paying Dak, and Trey Lance might have to look for an opportunity elsewhere. I feel like he's going to get another shot, because he really didn't get a chance. I mean, he did, but ended up getting hurt, unfortunately. So I feel like eventually you're going to see him start some games at some point. I don't know if it's going to be with Dallas or another team, but I mean, look at Zach Wilson. He ended up going to another team. He might get a shot with Denver. Maybe. So if Zach Wilson maybe gets another chance, why can't Trey Lance? Trey Lance, like I said, Trey Lance has gotten hurt. So we'll keep an eye on it. But let me know what you guys think about Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. What do you guys think they're going to do in the draft? And also just about what we talked about with their 3-star players. Are they going to be able to keep everybody? What do you think about Jerry Jones's all-in comments? All that, let me know in the comments. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we are going to talk about the 49ers. We'll talk about more Brandon Aiyuk trade rumors, as well as John Lynch, the general manager, reflecting on some past draft decisions, mainly, like I mentioned, drafting Trey Lance and how all that played out. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about a couple things regarding the San Francisco 49ers. Another topic that I've talked about a lot, and others on the GSMC Sports Network too, is the Brandon Aiyuk trade rumors. So I know there's some people that believe that maybe he will be traded during the draft. I know when I was coming home from work last night, I heard on the radio, at least where I am, the possibility of that happening. I don't know. It's tough to say, but when you have Brandon Aiyuk posting things on social media, and it seems like things are a little rocky right now. But again, we'll see what happens. I don't think that's going to happen, and if it does, again, it gives us something to talk about. But there is that possibility that he could be traded. They are still far apart on a contract extension. He's set to become an unrestricted free agent in 2025. They reached out to at least one general manager in early April to gauge interest in trading for Aiyuk. And I talked about Aiyuk's 2023 season, 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns, played in all 16 games. Had a great season, and I don't know. It's tough to say whether he will be traded or not, because you have John Lynch saying that they want to keep him, obviously, and I think they're going to do everything they can. But at the same time, it's like, well, maybe they do end up trading him, because I did see an article that there's one. Now here's the thing. I think it's one anonymous general manager said that. One general manager believes a potential trade for San Francisco wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk is very much in play ahead of Thursday's draft. Now, it doesn't specify what general manager said that. So, how do we know if that's, true or not? General manager said the trade was possible because of the 49ers and Aiyuk are far apart on a contract extension. Aiyuk is currently set to become an unrestricted free agent, like I said, in 2025. Now, this is according to Michael Silver of the San Francisco Chronicle. And this is what Silver wrote. All I know is that as of Monday night, when I posed the question to a 49ers source with direct knowledge of the team's plans, the words I kept hearing were, anything's possible. Okay, well, that is true. Anything is possible. And according to Silver, the 49ers previously reached out to at least one general manager in early April to talk about an Aiyuk trade, which I mentioned. Now, part of that reasoning is because Silver's reporting that the 49ers' recent negotiations stalled partly because this is considered a receiver-rich draft. So, maybe they could trade him and use the picks to draft his replacement. That's definitely possible. I mean, you saw the Titans did that, basically. You know, they traded A.J. Brown, they drafted Treylon Burks. That really hasn't panned out because now they brought in DeAndre Hopkins and then most recently Calvin Ridley. But still, that was a mistake. They should have kept A.J. Brown. But, you know, we've seen this happen. And maybe the 49ers do that because that does make sense. And in the article here, it mentions teams like the Cardinals who need a wide receiver, which I don't think they would. See, I keep saying that, but it could definitely, I mean, who knows? You got the Cardinals who need receivers. You got the Giants. I would love for him to go to the Giants, but I don't think that's going to happen. The Falcons, the Colts, and the Bills. Those are teams that they got listed that kind of need some wide receivers. Well, I don't know, but I mean, the Falcons could maybe use another receiver. But I feel like the Bills I would probably put the Bills ahead of them, the Colts. The Giants, definitely. The Giants need help at receiver. And Brandon Aiyuk would instantly become the number one wide receiver there. But also, Ian Rappaport said he wouldn't be surprised if Aiyuk can receive a more lucrative contract extension from another team. I mean, and that could definitely happen. It's tough, though, because, I said this before. You know, they got players that they got to, sign other than Aiyuk. So, again, it's like the Cowboys, too. Are you going to be able to keep everybody? Probably not. I mean, we'll see with the Cowboys. But the 49ers, yeah, I mean, you got, players on offense, on defense that you're not going to be able to keep everyone. I mean, they had to let Eric Armstead go. He went to Jacksonville. And I think that loss is going to hurt a little bit on defense. And I think if they lose Aiyuk, there's going to be some growing pains there because he was a big target for Brock Purdy. And if you end up losing him, this wide receiver group in this draft is loaded, but, losing Aiyuk is, in the short term, it's going to hurt. So, we'll see if it ends up happening. Again, it would be crazy if it does, because, again, we've had trades like the A.J. Brown trade happen on draft night. So who's to say it doesn't happen with Brandon Aiyuk? Who's to say that T. Higgins doesn't get traded either? But it seems like that resolved itself because I know I did a segment on that. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, too, is John Lynch talking about the Trey Lance stuff. So, the 49ers, they gave up draft capital to go and get Trey Lance. This was back in 2021. Get him at 3. And that really didn't pan out. Trey Lance got hurt. And, Garoppolo had to take over. And then Garoppolo gets hurt 2 years ago now. And, almost 2 years ago now. And then Brock Purdy has to come in. So it just really didn't work out. And this is kind of what he had to say. John Lynch. He said, I think, first of all, we have an ownership that's very supportive, and they support us greatly. Jed, John, Denise, Jenna, Mara York, they believe in Kyle and I and our leadership, and they believe what we think something's going to make us better. When we think something is going to make us better, they say go for it, and they don't give us a lot of restrictions there, and that's comforting to know. We can go be bold and do things like that, and yeah, we gave up a lot. We did it for reasons that we had and motivations, and it didn't work out. But thank God for Mr. Irrelevant, meaning Brock Purdy. He helped us. I always am careful of this because Trey Lance's story hasn't been written yet. He's in Dallas right now, and I still think Trey's got good football in him. We'll see. That will play out. But I think also the freedom when you've done something and you feel like maybe it can improve us to move on. We aren't beholden to, we drafted the guy. We've just got to stick it out. We can do the things we want to do. and I think that served us well. And people can comment on the thought process that went into it. We certainly study it, say what went wrong or what went right, what went wrong, and we do that with all of our picks. But I think we're in a really good place as a football team, as an organization, and we've got to find a way to get a little bit better, and that's the focus of this whole offseason, and this draft is an awesome opportunity to just do that. Now, I don't know how much better the 49ers can get because, I mean, look at the players that they have and look at the team that they have. I mean, I still look at them as the best team in the NFC, and they got all the way to the Super Bowl after a couple of years of not getting there, getting to the NFC Championship game still, but losing. They finally get back to the Super Bowl again against that same team, and that same team unfortunately beat them. So I don't know how much better the 49ers can get. But again, you know, they are a well-run organization. They really have turned it around after some rough years. You know, in between the Harbaugh era and then the Shanahan era, there were some rough years. And now they're back to being a Super Bowl contender. And they're trying to get it done. And but again, I don't know how much better the 49ers can get, really. I mean, on defense, there's some things that they could definitely improve. The run defense was not very good in the playoffs. I mean, they stepped up in the Super Bowl. They were better, but I mean, against the Packers and against the Lions, wasn't very good. So I know, and especially losing Eric Armstead now, that's tough. That's a tough loss. And I think also the back end, I know Ufanga, he got hurt last year, so getting him back is big. But, you know, the secondary could probably use a little bit of work, which I think they'll maybe draft someone for the secondary in this draft. But that, at least on defense, that's what I see. On offense, well, if they trade Aiyuk, then you probably would go after another receiver in this draft. You know, maybe offensive line. But I know people say, well, you should draft a new quarterback because Brock Purdy's not the answer, but that's not going to happen. Brock Purdy's the guy. And then the last thing I have here that John Lynch said, I think you're always thinking about that position. Now, this is talking about, because they asked him about Brock Purdy's contract extension and all that. I think you're always thinking about that position, and to know we have an answer there and a really good one, that's comforting. It allows us just to go and build around him and make our team stronger, and I think very highly of our roster. I mean, how could you not? What we have, I think it's going to be hard for these young kids to come in and make a mark, but there's good players, and that's our job to find that, because you have to have that. As many of our players as we've paid, you have to rely on rookie contracts, and so we need to infuse all those things that I said earlier, and we need some players to come out of this draft because they're going to be playing next year and into the future, and that's the opportunity there. Yeah, I mean, with Brock Purdy still on his rookie deal, I mean, you gotta win. You gotta try to win a Super Bowl, because that clock is ticking, and once he has to get paid, then, you know, some of the other guys that you have around him, you're not going to be able to keep all of them. So that is very important. But yeah, I mean, the 49ers roster is one of the best rosters in the NFL. But again, I don't know how much better they can get, because they're just that good. I mean, again, if you look, can you get a better quarterback than Brock Purdy? I mean, like, if you got, you know, you traded for like a top QB and put them in there, would they be able to beat the Chiefs? I mean, because I don't even think Brock Purdy played that bad in the Super Bowl. I know some people say he didn't play that good. I thought he played okay. I don't think he's the reason they lost. But he's the guy. He's the guy moving forward. I know there's some people that are going to say he's not, but he is. And like John Lynch said, thank God for Mr. Irrelevant, because if he didn't step in and do as good of a job as he did after Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt, filling in for Trey Lance back in 2022, well, who knows what happens with the 49ers? Well, I think probably what ends up happening is Trey Lance probably gets another shot. But I think because they fell in love with Brock Purdy, they were like, all right, well, Garoppolo, thank you for your time here. We're going to let you go somewhere else. Trey Lance, we're going to trade you away. And they're like, Brock Purdy's the guy moving forward. So, and you know what? He's done a nice job. Do I look at him as, an elite quarterback? No, but he's done the job. And whether you have your doubts about him or not, I mean, making it to the NFC Championship game and then making it to the Super Bowl the following season, I don't think that's bad. And you can't say, well, anybody could do it, which is not true. I mean, again, you can have your doubts on Brock Purdy, but listen, he was his first 2 years, what he's been able to accomplish, I mean, you got to give him some credit, even if you're not a big fan of his. So, all right, so before we go into our next break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about the Arizona Cardinals and them getting trade offers ahead of the NFL draft, whether they're going to trade down or stay at the number 4 pick. We'll get into all that, some draft stuff, when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about the Cardinals and them fielding trade offers ahead of the draft. Now, they're not going to move off of this pick before the draft. Again, I mean, it's Wednesday, draft's tomorrow night. So it's going to happen when they're on the clock. And there are some teams that could be interested in moving into that number 4 spot. Some teams that were listed, at least in the article that I was looking at. So you had the Giants, the Vikings, the Broncos, and the Raiders. They could be in the mix. Now, as a Giant fan, would love to see them move up, because that means, maybe there's a quarterback possibly that they really like that they want to grab. I know J.J.McCarthy, he's been connected to the Giants recently. And again, I'm not an expert on all these quarterbacks, so I really couldn't tell you, what my thoughts are, but at least from what I'm seeing is I see a lot more negative than I do see positive on J.J. McCarthy. And that doesn't make me positive if the Giants do that. Now, again, I think for me, I trust Brian Dable and Joe Shane, the head coach and the general manager. I think they'll get this pick right somehow. And if they do end up drafting J.J. McCarthy, so be it. But you also have, on the other hand, them talking about Daniel Jones and that they believe in him. So, again, is that a smokescreen? Because I know, looking at some other stuff, players that could be traded during the draft, Daniel Jones is one of those players. So, well, I don't know. I to be honest, I don't even see that happening. But, look, whatever the Giants decide to do, I'm not going to, go crazy, because I know in the past, like when the Giants drafted Daniel Jones, I mean, you go back and you look at some of the Giants fans' reactions to that, and yeah, they were not pleasant. So we could see something similar to that if they end up drafting J.J. McCarthy, at least in some people's eyes, because some people are not very high on him. But we'll see. But then you got some other teams, like I said. You have the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Vikings. The Vikings, I think, could be that team that they trade up and they like, because I think that's another team that likes J.J. McCarthy too. And it seems like the Patriots, obviously the Bears, the Commanders. The Patriots, they talked about being open for business. I know I did a topic on that, but with the Commanders and the Bears, I mean, they're set at 1 and 2, and it seems like the 1 and 2 is going to be Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. So that basically leaves you with Drake May and J.J. McCarthy as being the next quarterbacks on the board. And then after that, I know I saw that the Raiders, they like Michael Penix from Washington. You also got Bo Nix. Is he going to end up as well? Teams aren't going to be trading up to get those guys. Those guys might be taken later in the draft. But because with the Cardinals now, they're committed to Kyler Murray. They're probably going to want to draft a receiver, and they could probably get one of these top receivers even if they do trade down. Like if they trade down to like 6, you could still, and the Giants, trade up to go to 4. Then, they could probably still end up with, a top 1, top 2 receiver. At least like how the projections are. And I know there's like conflicting things that I've heard where like Marvin Harrison Jr. is the number 1 receiver. Then all of a sudden now Malik Neighbors is the number 1. So they could still end up with at least one of those 2 guys. And again, that all depends on what the Chargers do, because the Chargers need receivers, but they can end up trading down as well. So the Cardinals, we could maybe see them moving down. You know what? I'm going to make a prediction here. I'm going to say that the Vikings trade up. And I think they're going to be the ones that get J.J. McCarthy. I'm going to make that prediction because I feel like I play it safe and don't give you predictions, but I'm going to say that the Vikings are the team that does it. They're the team that trades up and gets J.J. McCarthy. I don't see the Raiders doing it. I think the Raiders kind of hang around where they are. Maybe they trade down. But we'll see. Again, I would love if the Giants traded up and they get their guy. I feel like they'd probably still. I feel like if they like J.J. McCarthy, I feel like they're going to still end. Yeah, they're going to end up with him. Because, the Chargers, they got Herbert. Although I saw that, what if the Chargers traded Herbert and they draft J.J. McCarthy because Harbaugh's there? I don't see that happening. But because I saw they're like that a rumor like, what if the Vikings trade with the Chargers, the Vikings get Justin Herbert, and then the Chargers, they could draft J.J. McCarthy. I don't. That's not going to happen. That would be crazy if that happens, because Justin Herbert then going to the Vikings and being with Justin Jefferson and the weapons that they have there. That would make the NFC North even better. But I don't think that's not going to happen. Justin Herbert's the guy. But you never know. But yeah, I see the Vikings moving up and them being the team that gets J.J. McCarthy, and I think that's a good spot for him to go. Now, they got to figure out Justin Jefferson and getting him a contract extension, because the Vikings can't lose him, because he's the best receiver in the NFL. Don't want to lose him. So I don't think that's a bad spot for J.J. McCarthy, and I don't think he wouldn't start right away. No. You got Sam Darnold there. It's possible you could start, but maybe they want to bring along their young quarterback and you have Sam Darnold start at first. But we'll see. So I think that the Vikings will move up and get him. And then, but then where does that leave Drake May? The Patriots? We'll see. Because again, the Patriots, they could trade. I mean, they're open for business. Like I said, they are willing to trade any of their picks. So, maybe a team trades up with them to take their 3. I don't know. I mean, it's tough if they give up their 3. I don't know. I feel like they stay at 3. Cardinals, probably see them maybe trading down. Because, again, you could end up with one of the top receivers still. You can even get a Dunze or Brian Thomas Jr. They could still get their receiver, even if they trade down. So I could definitely see that. And, again, you got teams that, all the teams that I listed, they need quarterbacks. So, they're going to want to move up. Definitely. So, we'll have to keep an eye on it. But maybe the Cardinals, they don't really get the offer that they want, and they stay at 4 and they take a receiver. Because that's probably what they're going to end up doing. Because that's what they kind of need. DeAndre Hopkins is not there anymore. They traded Rondell Moore. Marquise Brown isn't there anymore. Now with the Chiefs. So, yeah, you kind of need receivers. Actually, let's look at the Cardinals depth chart. Because I know Michael Wilson is a receiver that they drafted. Let me look at their depth chart. I mean, Trey McBride, their tight end, he really, that was like, last year was like his coming out party when it came to his production. Played really well. Now I'm looking up Cardinals depth chart. That's what we want to look at. Yeah, he played really well, but you need more receivers. And right now, it's kind of thin there. And, you still got James Conner coming out of the backfield. And, Kyler, I thought, played okay. But, again, you want to, so this is their receiving core at the moment. So you got Michael Wilson, Greg Deutsch, and Chris Moore. Those are your top 3 wide receivers. So, yeah, kind of need to improve on that. So you figure that's going to be their first pick, is taking a receiver and then addressing your other needs throughout the draft. But, yeah, I think it's, I don't know if it's safe to say, but that's probably, I could definitely see that. The Cardinals trading down and then still getting a top receiver, just not with the 4 pick. Yeah, so Albert Breer, so he knows that, so he was speculating, even though this is probably what's going to end up happening. The Bears, Commanders, they're taking quarterbacks. The Patriots are probably going to take a quarterback. So I think what's going to end up happening is, what are the Patriots going to do? Are they going to take Drake May, J.J. McCarthy? Might end up being Drake May. So then that might just leave J.J. McCarthy left, and that's going to lead to a team trading up to probably get him. Now, there's reports suggesting the Giants are considering a trade up for Drake May. The Vikings are actively seeking to move up into the top 5, and the Broncos are exploring trade up options for a quarterback. So, I think you're going to see the Vikings definitely move up. The Giants. The Raiders are also looking to trade up. They were trying to get the number 2 pick from the Commanders, but the Commanders are set at 2, so that's not happening. But, like I said, draft's tomorrow night. So, those questions will be answered. And we'll see where these quarterbacks end up going. Again, I think you probably see the Raiders end up with, like, Michael Penix or Bo Nix. Unless they really are able to get into the top 5. But I think for me, I see the Vikings moving up and them getting J.J. McCarthy. And then we'll see what happens after that. So, let me know what you guys think about that. What team do you think has the best chance of getting this number 4 pick from the Cardinals. Because it seems like it's going to be the Vikings. So, like I said, we will find out tomorrow when, the draft starts. And, I mean, like I said, I just read off the top 3 wide receivers for the Cardinals. Yeah, they need a receiver, and they're definitely going to take one. And if they trade down, then you might not end up with Marvin Harrison Jr. or Neighbors, but you get some of the other guys that I mentioned. So, like I said, we'll find out tomorrow. So, with that, we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers GM Omar Khan talking about, maybe taking a quarterback possibly, or alluding to it ahead of the draft, which, like I said, is tomorrow night. So that is what we will discuss when we come back from our final break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the Steelers and the possibility of maybe them taking a quarterback in this draft. Now, it's not going to be one of the top guys, obviously, but maybe there's one that they do take at some point during the draft. So, Omar Khan, the general manager on Monday, he didn't rule out the Steelers taking a quarterback, but he ruled out taking the Steelers. He did rule out the Steelers taking a quarterback in the first round. He said, "I think it's not realistic that we'll be taking a quarterback in round 1 if that's what you're asking. No, there are some good players there, and I wouldn't close the door on anything. If there's an opportunity to improve in that room, obviously we'll look at it. But like you said, we've got 3 guys who are on 1-year deals, and we have to be open to it." Because they also signed Kyle Allen to a contract, or they brought Kyle Allen in. You got Justin Fields, who you traded for, and you signed Russell Wilson. And obviously, completely different quarterback room from last year when you had Kenny Pickett, who you traded to Philadelphia, Mitchell Trubisky, who signed with, I think, the Bills, and Mason Rudolph signed with the Titans. So, I mean, it's possible, and actually, in the article that I'm looking at, they do mention Jordan Travis from Florida State, and he got hurt last season, and maybe the Steelers could draft him possibly. And Florida State, was good last year, and he got hurt, and they ended up not making the college football playoff, and he had all the complaints about that. Them going undefeated, what else did you want them to do? And now they're trying to get out of the ACC. But that's one name that's listed in the article. Is Jordan Travis. Now, I think, drafting a quarterback maybe later wouldn't be the worst thing because, you got, like you said, you got guys on 1-year deals. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Kyle Allen's a backup quarterback. Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, Justin Fields has a chance to start. Russell Wilson is your starter. And the Steelers did a good job. Getting Russell Wilson for cheap, didn't give up that much for Justin Fields. Can't really complain about that. And whatever happens, they don't have a long-term commitment with any of those guys. But at the same time, you also want to have that backup plan. Now, does that necessarily mean that if they draft a quarterback in this draft that he's going to end up being the answer? No. But at least you have that option. And look, the Steelers, whoever's been starting a quarterback, it doesn't matter. They still find a way to finish with a decent record and somehow squeak into the playoffs. Because remember, if you go back to 2019, Ben Roethlisberger gets hurt, and I mean, he played the first game of the year against the Patriots when they got absolutely destroyed on that Sunday night, but then got hurt in the second game against the Seahawks that season. Mason Rudolph, he steps in, and he's the starter, but then, you had Devlin Hodges who had to start some games too, and they won some games with him. And the Steelers finished 8-8 and had a chance to make the playoffs like the final week of the regular season. So no matter who has started at quarterback, the Steelers find a way to finish with a decent record. But, you look at their current quarterback situation. Like I said, I think they have done a great job. But, we're still we still need to see more from Justin Fields. And I thought when he came back from the injury last season, he did play better. And the Bears as a team played better. And, they had a chance to make the playoffs. But, they still missed out on it. So I think new situation now, maybe this is good for him. And maybe the fact that he just sits behind Russell Wilson, that could be good for him too. And then when it comes to Russell Wilson, we're kind of like, like I said, we're in a wait and see with Fields. Want to see more from him. Russell Wilson, I think we kind of know what he is at this point. I don't think you're going to see him. I mean, I've talked about this numerous times. I don't think you're not going to see what he did in Seattle. That's just that Russ is gone. We're going to be seeing more of what we saw in Denver. Now, again, the numbers from last year are decent. 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. It's okay numbers. But that's probably what you're going to end up seeing. And is that going to be good enough for the Steelers to make the playoffs and maybe finally win a playoff game? Because it's been, like I said, the last time they won was in Arrowhead back in the 2016-2017 season. So it's been a long time. And you look at the conference now, not just the conference, your own division, it's a gauntlet. But you know what? The Steelers, at least for me, I know that they are going to be in the mix. But can they get over that hump and finally win a playoff game with these guys? We'll have to see. And will Justin Fields ever see the field? Will he play? He probably will play a little bit. But if Russ is bad, Fields is going to get put in the game. But the Steelers also got some work to do with this draft because they're another team that needs a receiver. They're also trying to pursue veteran receivers, trying to get one. Because right now, you signed receivers for depth. You got George Pickens. You traded away Deontay Johnson. So, yeah, you kind of need another receiver in there. And I think they're going to find one. They're going to get one way or another. Whether it is through the draft or free agency, they're going to figure that out. So it remains to be seen. But that's another thing that they have to address, too, is receiver. And that's what they do. They draft receivers. So it's probably going to happen in this draft as well. But now, how do I see the Steelers season playing out? I kind of alluded to it. Russell Wilson, you're going to probably see him put up similar numbers to Denver when he was in Denver. So maybe if you get another 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, maybe that's good enough for the Steelers to get into the playoffs because as long as T.J. Watt's healthy on the other side, Steelers defense is going to be good. And them adding Patrick Queen, the linebacker from the Ravens, that's a good move. So as long as T.J. Watt, the quarterback of the defense, is healthy, the Steelers are going to be a team that, finishes with a winning record or close to a winning record. Because they haven't finished with a losing record with Mike Tomlin, and they're going to find a way to continue that streak until otherwise. But, I don't know if any of these guys are Russell Wilson's not a long-term answer. Justin Fields, they did trade for him. So, you know, they might want to keep him around when Russ, if they let Russ go. Russ could be one and done, and then maybe they bring back Fields. And if they do end up drafting a quarterback, that's the other quarterback that you keep on the roster, and you go from there. I don't know. But, I mean, they did, like I said, they traded for Fields, so I don't think I don't think he's going to be one and done. Unless, like, he also goes out there and he plays really bad. But we'll have to see. Again, we're going to be in May soon. But we're still ways away from the first game being played. But it is definitely interesting, the possibility of the Steelers taking a quarterback. Again, probably going to be later in the draft because they got other needs, like receiver, that might end up being their first pick as receiver. Because, again, you traded one away, and, Quez Watkins, Van Jefferson, that doesn't move the needle. But, again, those were depth signings. Now you got to go and get a number 2 for George Pickens. Because you still got Pat Freiermuth as well, who's a good tight end, but you need receiver help. And, the Steelers, they're a team that loves to draft wide receivers, and that's going to happen in this draft, you would imagine. So, unless they bring in a veteran receiver. But I could definitely see that happening. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. Do you see the Steelers taking a quarterback in this draft? Again, it's not going to be with the first pick. Omar Khan shut that down. But still a possibility that maybe they take one later in the draft. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. And, yeah, like I said, draft is tomorrow night. Really looking forward to that. Going to be getting together with some friends for that, so that should be fun. With everybody working in schedules, it's just very hard to, get together for things lately. But it's going to be nice to at least do that. Got the Knicks playoff game tomorrow night as well. So looking forward to that. Going to be repping my Jalen Brunson jersey, which I had on the other night. So want to know with the Jalen Brunson jersey, in the one of the craziest endings you'll ever see in a basketball game. The Knicks were able to pull that out. And that was unbelievable. So, yeah, looking forward to that and the draft. Knicks trying to go up 3-0 in the series against the 76ers. So you got that going on at the same time as the draft. So we're going to have to figure something out. I mean, it's probably going to be a lot of flipping back and forth unless somebody wants to bring over another TV to, have the draft on one and the Knicks on the other. We'll have to figure it out. Discussions will have to be had for that. And then, of course, I'll have the Yankees playing on the S app on my phone, so I could keep up with that. But yeah, no, it should be a good night. Looking forward to that. Well, hopefully, the teams that we root for don't make bad picks. Which I don't know. I feel like the Giants one is trickier. Like the Jets, I feel like they're going to end up taking either Brock Bowers or a receiver. Now, what they should take is probably an offensive lineman, but they're probably going to end up taking a playmaker, which I don't think is a bad move either. But, they took some risks with the offensive line this offseason. Like Tyron Smith, I definitely could see getting hurt. So, yeah, maybe you should take an offensive lineman instead. Maybe. That's just me. So, but we'll discuss more about the draft tomorrow. Some things to touch upon. I mean, again, you kind of know where the first 2 picks are going, even 3 picks, all going to be quarterbacks, unless the Patriots trade. Well, if the Patriots trade out, whoever takes 3 is going to take a quarterback. So the first 3 picks are going to be quarterback. And then if the Cardinals trade out of their pick, then that's going to probably be another quarterback that's going to be off the board. So you're probably going to see all quarterbacks go first, and then you'll start seeing receivers, and then we go from there. But should be an exciting night. Looking forward to it. And again, just hoping that, my team makes the right picks. But again, if they pick someone that the fan base goes crazy over and is not happy about, you're not going to see that reaction out of me. You're not. Because, to be honest, my Giants fandom really just has not been what it was, just because of the rough years that have been going on. Now, again, I still am a Giant fan, just maybe not as what I once was. Now, with the Yankees, as you could see in the background, or you have seen since I started doing shows, that's always going to be my team, no matter what. No matter what. That's my number one team. Out of all the teams that I root for, that is always going to be my number one team. And that will never change. But again, the Giants, I will always be a Giant fan. Just the fandom's really taken a hit. And I'm hoping that they can bounce back. And I don't know. The other thing, too, is, and I've said this, I just don't feel as much connection to players as I did. Because it's just a lot of the players that they've had recently, they're not here for a long time. They end up leaving. But maybe now with Brian Dable and Joe Shane, they build that team back up. And, I get back to how I was, before, after the Super Bowl. With that team. Or with the Super Bowl team, whatever. I don't know what I was trying to say there. But you guys know what I mean. Because, again, after the Super Bowl, it went downhill after that. So, but yeah, that is all the time that we have for today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Get their perspectives on other things, not just football, but other sports all across. I don't even know what I was saying. All across the world, I guess. All across the states, all across the world. I don't know. But yeah, give the show some love. Check out the other shows as well here. And so until then, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.